MK Asante is a writer, filmmaker, and hip-hop artist, and recipient of the Langston Hughes Award. His books include It's Bigger Than Hip-Hop, the poetry collection Like Water Running Off My Back, and the best-selling memoir, Buck. His documentary film, The Black Candle, co-written with Maya Angelou, illuminates the relevance of the principles of Kwanzaa. Asante is the host and co-executive producer of While Black, a Snap original docuseries co-produced by NBCUniversal. He joins us this evening with his new book, Nephew, a memoir in 4-part harmony. He'll be joined in conversation this evening with Molefi Asante, professor in the Department of Africology at Temple University, where he created the first PhD program in African American Studies in 1988. Please welcome our guests to the Free Library.
Oh. All right, thank you very much. Wow, this is great. Welcome to Philadelphia.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
you know, this is home. So,
that's
you know.
right. So happy to have you back in Philadelphia and to talk about this important book. One of the things I wanted to start with was actually to say that we just, we did this maybe one time before in Baltimore, a couple of times.
Yeah, we did this once. Yep.
Once in Baltimore. So it's very, very good to be on the stage.
But we do this all the time.
Yeah, but not
on the
not
phone and around each other.
Yeah, but not in front of people.
Not in front of a million live stream podcasters.
But it's great and it's wonderful. And I just want to start by just simply saying how proud I am of you and actually the publication of this book, Nephew, because Nephew has been called by some people really the creation of a new genre of memoirs. That in fact, one writer has said that it was, he want to call it the MK genre of memoirs, mainly because of the way it's constructed. But I want to start by asking you to just talk to this audience about the key moments. In a memoir, you have those things, those markers, those moments that really make a difference for you. So what are some of the key moments that really help to structure this for you?
Well, thank you. First of all, I just want to say hi, everybody out there. Thank you for coming out. It's great to see familiar faces, lovely faces, friends. And Dad, thank you for being proud of me. Thank you for having me. It's a great,
Thank you very much.
It's a great thing, and I'm really, really glad to be here. You've inspired me a lot with your writing, your speaking, teaching, your philosophies, your work ethic. So, I'm glad you're proud of me, but it's mutual.
Thank you. It's Romo that.
There you go. And as far as, the major points, let me just say, Nephew is a memoir in 4-part harmony. So one of the things that I mean, to me, writing and music and film and all of these things are connected, right? I actually look at all these things like languages. Right? Mm-hmm. So, if you speak a language, you can communicate with someone. Spanish, French, Swahili, mm-hmm. Yoruba, right? Mm-hmm. When you speak the language of, for example, cinema, or the language of painting, abstract mm-hmm. art, the language of hip-hop, the language of literature, poetry, whatever language, these are languages, and they can communicate ideas. So when I think about mm-hmm. ideas, projects, I usually think about what language am I going to tell this mm-hmm. story in. Mm-hmm. And I've been very close with my nephew, Nasir, who, that's who the book is. I'm writing him a letter, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that the biggest key event is just the relationship with my nephew,
Yes,
right? Because
yes.
with without that relationship, there is no book, there's no story. That's really the foundation for the story, you know.
So you're writing to him, but you are also influenced by the fact that in some way he was protecting someone when he was shot.
Yeah, and let me take it back for
Yeah,
people who
and
don't
that-
necessarily
yeah.
know, you know, the story, and don't know what the book is about. So Nephew is an epistolary memoir. So, you know, that means I'm writing a letter, so much in the vein of like, you know, The Fire Next Time, or something like Between the World and Me, and there's many other epistolary examples. So it's an epistolary work. I'm writing to my nephew. When the book starts, he's been shot, and he's in Temple University Hospital, and we don't know if he's gonna make it or not, okay? And this is the beginning of me starting to ruminate and really starting to think about, what haven't I told him, right? What things haven't I said? You know, because what happens is, you know, sometimes when things happen in life, that's when you realize, damn, I never told this person this. I never told them this. I never told them this. You know, and for so long, I think I had this idea of maybe keeping certain things from him, almost to like protect. But then you realize that that's actually not protecting. That it's like kind of like if you have some kind of, you know, you're predisposed to something in your family, like, you know, medically. To not know about it would be an issue. You know, to know about it gives you power and allows you to like heal and fix it, right? And change that. But if you don't know about it, then it's so I think I began to reflect and realize that there's things that I have to tell him. And also things that, you know, obviously my brother.
I was going to say, one of the things is about your brother.
Yeah,
you know,
so
about Uzi.
yeah,
Right.
so my brother Uzi is in Buck, obviously,
Right.
and that was one of the things that the story that I wanted to tell my nephew Nasir is about, you know, my relationship with Uzi, and also just the things that he didn't know about what was going on in the background, and not just Uzi. You know, this is an intergenerational story, so. It goes Uzi, but then we go, the next generation is Bob, Uzi's dad,
That's right.
Nasir's granddad. And so
That's right.
Bob's letters, in 1971, Bob started, how many people in here read Buck? Just curious. Okay, cool. So you know how in Buck you have Ina's journal, my mom's journal entries coming in? So in Nephew, we do something similar, but it's in 1971, Bob started writing letters to God. And these letters, you want me to read you one? I'll read you. Yeah. I think that'll be, because I can talk about them, but I think they need to hear them.
I think you should hear, you should read one. And because actually, Bob, who was Uzi's father, was also himself a very reflective individual, but who also had his own difficulties. And I think that is one of the things that gives the book part of its energy and part of its power. So please just read.
Yeah, I had
one of these. One of these.
Doing Marty Moskowin earlier. She asked me to read this part here, so I'm gonna read this part here because that's what she had me read. This is June 13th, 1971. Dear God, here's my situation as it stands now. Been in Buffalo 5 years this July 4th, a little way from graduating. No income other than cashing bad checks, borrowing from anybody and everybody, stealing from the gym, stealing from my girl, stealing from people's rooms on campus, no job, no home. I've had the opportunity to make a lot of contacts that might be helpful later on in life, but most people probably have only negative memories about me. Thoughts about a guy who God has given a lot of ability and talent and who hasn't taken advantage of it, just wasting his life away, really. All I've done is inject something into my veins that gives me an excuse to cop out. All dope to me is a means to an end, and that means to an end is self-destruction. I really don't think that good things are supposed to happen to me. I don't think that I'm worthy, ugly duckling. I'm someone who knows he has the ability, but who probably doesn't have the confidence and courage to put the abilities to the test. I once heard it say that a man who is afraid of being laughed at is a man who will never succeed. Capricorns are supposedly afraid to take risks. Getting back to injecting that poison in my veins.
No.
And then he goes on about, you know, so he struggled with heroin addiction, and this was, you know, someone who my mom was in love with, and she was with him
Yes.
before she met you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, and so
And
it's very telling. When I read those messages, those are like the strongest anti-drug messages I've ever read. Like, if you don't want someone to do drugs, just have them read his letters. You know, he was 25 years old, and he has a letter in here where he says, I'm 25 years old, and, you know, my organs don't work, right? And I don't even want them to work. All I want to do is one thing. Exactly, yeah. And so, you know, and so...
and I wanted just to push you a little bit on this, because this is it's a very powerful story, and particularly as you're talking and writing to your nephew, to Nasir, about it. There is a history here also with Uzi in some senses, but there's also the history with Ina, who is in one sense the glue to all of this, to this entire story, because of her calmness and because of her ability to also reflect on what's going on with the family. And I think that that's something that comes out in the memoir as well.
Yeah, my mom's diaries are also in the book, similar to how it was in Buck, but we also have Bob's letters from God, and we have some other voices as well. You know, when I talk about the 4-part harmony, I'm talking about several different parts. And there's a moment in here where I'm talking to Nasir, and I tell him very specifically what those parts are, right? I say, all of our voices, Uzi's bass, Bob's tenor, my alto, and Ina's soprano, reach you now in 4-part harmony. Because, you know, like I said, I started writing this letter to my nephew, but again, it became the ancestors. You know, my mom is now an ancestor, a new ancestor, and Bob and all these other people. It wasn't just them, right? Because if you read this book, you see George Moses Horton and Ida B. Wells and, you know, Fannie Lou Hamer, and all these ancestors are also talking to my nephew, right? Miriam Makeba, you know, whoever it is, Amiri Baraka, you know, all of these people, Nipsey Hussle, all of them, all of these ancestors are talking to the nephew. So, you know, and Dr. Maya Angelou, she was a mentor of mine, and I think you heard we made a film together. And one thing she used to say is that when you walk into the room or when you go somewhere, bring your ancestors, bring your people. She said, so when you walk into that room, you come in with all of your people, all of the ancestors, you know, and that was, so that was something that I was very conscious about in terms of just like trying to communicate with my nephew, that I'm not the only one trying to communicate with him. Yeah.
And you had contemporaries like Dead Prez and Public Enemy and many other people who were around, who also were influences on you, and in many ways in your memory as you, you know, bring this to life, this epistle to your nephew. You have the ancestors, but you also have these influences that are pretty contemporary as well.
I have a lot of contemporary influences. You know, the people you named are people who had you know, actually, those are people who you had a very significant influence on.
You're trying to date. You're trying to date me. You're trying to date me.
You know, people like Dead Prez. I mean, when I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, I came home from school one day. Not even from home. I came to my dad's office from school, and the whole Public Enemy was sitting in his office, just chilling. You know what I mean? So when he says, you know,
Well,
But you were influencing them. When I met Dead Prez, they said, "Yo, your pops is the one who gave us our names." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like your
yeah.
pops gave it because
Yeah.
you wrote a book called The African Book of Names.
That's right.
You know, and not only did you say that where you taught people African names, but you started saying that when African Americans give themselves names,
Yeah.
make up names. That is part of an African tradition.
Yeah,
You know, even
that's
if they
right.
don't know that
That's
that's an
right.
African name, they are trying.
That's
They're reaching
right.
back and
That's
trying
right.
to connect to that thing that's missing.
That's right.
And so
That's right.
I thought that was very deep always. I've always thought that it was very deep.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
everything you said about, you know, your conversation on Ebonics. But anyway, to bring it back to Nephew, what's up, man? This is like a family reunion.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know what I mean?
Yeah, you see Ben back there.
You know what I'm
right?
saying? I see everybody.
John, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah. So
Yeah,
I forgot
so,
the question.
no, but I want to go back to Uzi
Yes.
because one of the pieces that really is a key moment for me in the book is when Uzi goes into this house and saved this person. I think it was Pottstown or Doylestown or somewhere. I don't quite remember the place where this happened. The building was on fire, and he goes in, and that to me shows also his character and the strength that he had at that particular moment. You see?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of go back a little bit because that's kind of toward the end, and I think it's important to understand, like contextually, you know, a lot of what happens in this book, like I said, with all these different voices, you know, and a lot of musicality, right? So there's also lyrics throughout the book. There's Nasir's lyrics, there's Uzi's lyrics, there's my lyrics, and there's lyrics from other people. But one of the things that happens in this book that I think is really important is that, you know, there's a lot of effort in talking about fatherhood and how important fatherhood is and really trying to get Uzi to step up. There's a whole conversation about how a young man, a young boy like myself, a kid, you know, growing up, can go from idolizing someone, right? So in childhood, I idolized my brother to in adulthood watching him be idle. Right? And that whole thing is really profound, and also the idea of the gift. And I want to bring up someone else. It's important. There are a lot of voices in this book, and we've only been talking about a few. But there's Grandma Beverly.
Yes, of course.
Grandma Beverly is Nasir's grandma on the other side. And Grandma Beverly is a pastor, and she's a deeply spiritual woman. She beat cancer. She was supposed to be long gone, like 40, 50 years ago, and she beat it because she wanted to see her kids live on, right? And so she's in there. Hezekiah, you know, she's like that's one of her refrains, Hezekiah. And so she's in there, and plays an important role in Nasir's healing. Because I think, you know, whenever you hear someone getting shot, especially that many times, you think, well, did they make it? But I think she was a really instrumental role in that, you know, with all of the energy around prayer and all of the energy around positivity and healing that she did. And then Nasir's mother, you know, I think, who I write about in this book as well, because Ina talked about her as well. And my mom passed away in 2021, but Ina always talked very highly of Nasir's mother and called her a textured woman. A textured woman is a woman that can sashay from, you know, I'll give you the exact line.
Right.
Yeah, let me give you the exact line.
Good.
Let me read you a little bit from the opening. That way you can kind of get
And your
a sense.
mother was a great poet
Oh,
herself.
she's
I
the
just
best.
want to. I mean, I just really
She's
want
the
people
best.
to realize that.
She's the best.
Because she was absolutely
Bars.
a wonderful poet. Yes.
Bars. Okay. Dear nephew, it's 3 a.m. My veiny hands shake like leaves as I write you. You're unconscious in the ICU at Temple University Hospital. Rain streams outside, tears inside. The sky is off black, the clouds are thick like blunt smoke, and the air is hot and heavy with pain. Shots, screams, moans, blood, piss, smoke, cries, prayers. I can smell the stress. You are nowhere near alone. I'm in the ER lobby with your mom, cousin Crystal, Big T, Bump, Grandma Beverly, and what feels like half of North Philly. Mounds of cheekbones, crescent lips, and scripture tattoos. I read Only God Can Judge Me on Bump's brick of a forearm. Your principal from the Crefeld School, George, is here too. Heartbroken and steely-eyed, he palms his forehead in utter shock and disbelief. Detectives in blue jackets peek, prod, and circle like clocks. White coats with clipboards scramble in and out. Temple police and neon windbreakers stalk the hallways. Nurses whoosh by, scrubs striding in urgent purpose. Bloody sneaker prints stamp the hallway vinyl. Your mom is what my mom, your grandmother, she prefers Ina, which is Swahili for grandmother, calls a textured woman. Ina describes a textured woman as a woman with her hair plaited and then unplaited, with the ripples remaining as she sassays from corner to throne. So Ina always talked about her as a textured woman, and I thought that was a very beautiful
Yeah, it's a beautiful description. I think there is something else that really is so profound in your writing, actually, and that is that as you are writing this letter to your nephew, to Nasir, there's historical content. There are allusions to various events that are going on in the society, and the way you put together, structured this particular letter is, to me, one of the most creative aspects of it. I mean, and I think that it's life, as some of the reviewers have already said, that it would be a classic because of the structure in many ways.
I think, thank you for that observation and question. You know, I think for me, and I'll give you an example of that. You know, I was writing to my nephew. My nephew is a brilliant artist. He's a brilliant artist, writer, thinker, recording artist. And so I'll give you an example of what I was. This is from a chapter called The North Star. You know, when I found out what happened to him, I drove up from, I was in North Carolina at the time, and that's where I live, and so that's where I live now. And so I was driving up from North Carolina, and on the drive, all I did was listen to his music, right? Because Nasir has made a lot of music, hundreds of hours worth of music, probably. There's so much music, right? And so, or hours, not hundreds of hours, but hours worth of music. And I'm going to read a little bit from that chapter. So, on my midnight race up to Philly from North Carolina, I listened to all of your music. Rhythm rushes, your frequencies fill the fast night air. I catch glimpses of your song titles as they flash and glow on my dashboard. Strangers, Casket, Prosper, True Story, For Real, Once Again, Cold Nights, Homicide, Youngin', Ain't Just Rap, Pray for Philly, Karma, hashtag, Be Me. I always do this. I spit lyrics under my breath all day, every day. The lyrics that resonate with me the most always leak out like the truth does. Your beats vibrate my essence and snap my head back and forth like whiplash. They thump through me. Your autobiographical bars send shivers straight down my spine. Your lyrics illustrate your journey. When I listen, okay, so I want to jump to this part here. I say, when I listen to you sing and flow in your song Prosper, it inspires a sense of hope for your current situation. Hope is that thing with feathers. My hope is that someday you will be able to hear this tune. So I must keep writing, feeling, and believing, because to write right now is to feel, and feeling is believing. Although you are in critical condition, prosper pushes me to remember that beautiful thing with feathers that carried us this far. I think about how music, one of the things you do so well, possesses the power to heal. In ancient Egypt, the harp is used at healing temples. Modern scientific studies reveal that vibrations from music can lower blood pressure, reduce heart rate, relieve anxiety and pain, and bring out an overall sense of peace. In ancient Greece, the god Apollo was not only the god of medicine, but music as well. They built music-filled temples to harmonize the body. You harmonize, Nasir, from the book of Isaiah with the depth and soul of a big-bone gospel singer from the deep south, someone like Muddy Waters from Rolling Fork, or Odetta from Birmingham, or a young Aretha at New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit. I remember you playing the drums, backed by hand claps and church shoe stomps at Grandma Beverly's Macedonia Free Will Baptist Church in North Philly. That's my first glimpse at your ancestral rhythm and impeccable time. Your drumming pulsates through the wooden pews and stained glasses of Macedonia and pours out onto the corner of 21st and Cecil B. Moore. Your drum is a voice that speaks our mother tongue, sending messages and warnings. Back in the day, the moment white Southern enslavers realized that Africans are not simply playing drums, but speaking drums to communicate, they criminalize our percussion. They actually ban our drums, outlaw our beats, spouting BS like the slave code of South Carolina. See, nephew, the enslavers didn't realize that we were born on beat, and that just like the will to be free, it's embedded in us, drum or no drum. This is why jazz pianist Randy Weston, who's from Ena's neighborhood in Brooklyn, says your heartbeat is your drum, your voice is your sound, and music is supposed to put you in tune with nature. Nasir, your voice is the drum they fear. Your voice is freedom. It's your huru.
This is very powerful.
Yeah,
Listen,
and I want to do one more thing I want to give you real quick. Mm-hmm. Your use of water as a metaphor for trouble, for destructive wet blunts dipped in PCP laced in bombing fluids, and for the streets is deep because that's the essence of the original song. More than a song, Wade in the Water, just like our drums they ban, is a coded message. During our daring escapes from the hells of slavery, our ancestors would sing, Wade in the water, to signal runaways to get off the trail and into the water to avoid being sniffed by bloodhounds. Most black spirituals are codes and odes to freedom. Okay? Escapes, rebellions, and freedom are all encoded in our music. I keep going and going on and on.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep going, but you get the idea. I'm connecting what my nephew is doing with the tradition of what we've been doing.
For me as a father, I always ask myself the question, you didn't get this kind of knowledge and from UCLA or Lafayette. You got something else from them, but what you produced in this incredible memoir is actually a compilation of all of the proverbial wisdom and information of people like Opoku and John Henry Clark and Amiri Baraka and Maya Angelou and other people who gave you this. But in some senses, in your own home, you had a shrine to this historical reference that allowed you to expand and to grow as well. And I think that in one powerful way, what you have done here to try to universalize this is that you have provided for us a pathway for other young people to have an understanding and appreciation of the immensity of our history and culture. You see?
Yeah.
You see? And I think that's the profound quality of what you have done. And I think that perhaps one or two more comments, and then if the audience will have questions, we will go to them. Okay. But I want to also say that the way you have manifest this profound sense of harmony.
So I'm so sorry.
Sure,
but y'all,
right.
can we just give a round of applause for my nephew?
Yeah.
Nephew!
Oh, yeah.
That was a perfect entrance. He was coming down. I said, oh, that's a perfect entrance.
Nasir, how you doing, Nasir? Yeah, so, so that's Nasir. So, yeah, thank you. All right, Nasir. So this is a very wonderful way that if I were
I wanted
anybody,
to,
go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I
No,
wanted
that's
to
right.
honor my nephew with
Yes,
this book.
yes.
I adore my nephew. I celebrate my nephew. I think he's exceptional. I think he's inspires me. He's one of my influences and inspirations. So when I wrote this book, one of the things I wanted to do was celebrate you, man, because you need to be celebrated. You're a hero. Your heroic actions helped save other people that day. And these are things that the news not going to talk about that. It's not on the news, right? You know, if we're not going to celebrate each other, who's going to celebrate you if we're not going to celebrate each other? So, you know, I just want to say that, you know, thank you for being who you are. And, you know, being an exceptional young man.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's a good time now to actually go to questions and comments from the audience. If you have any questions that you would like to ask.
Yeah, I know a lot. How many people have read Nephew yet so far? Okay, so just one. It just came out like okay.
Yesterday. Yesterday.
Yeah.
Some gaps here, so if you can help us out a bit and help us to understand Nasir's story and the shooting and you sitting in the hospital and beginning to write this letter, I believe.
Thank you. So, Nephew, a memoir in 4-part harmony, is a memoir. I started writing the book when he was shot, and he got shot a total of 9 times. And as I started writing this memoir, there's a lot of things about our family that hadn't been disclosed yet. You know, one of the things is that, you know, my brother, who's Nasir's dad, you know, was not in the picture at all. And they didn't even know each other. And it was a source of tension and a source of, like, I lost my relationship. I mean, I couldn't even have a relationship with my brother because I told him, I don't have any friends that don't take care of their children, that aren't in their kids' life. Like, I can't respect that, you know? It's difficult for me. So it became a source of great tension with us, you know, because that's not how you move, you know? But I also understand that he was going through his own, you know, challenges and difficulties, and, you know, that's one of the reasons why. So in lieu of that, Nasir's mom and grandma and all his family on his mom's side are wonderful. You know, he's got uncles, and on our side, me and my mom, we made sure that even if my brother wasn't going to be in the picture, we were going to be very tight and close. And so we made sure of that. And so in the book, in this 4-part harmony, a lot of things happen while Nasir is in the hospital. You learn about that history of his father. Why did he not step up? Who is he? Where did he come? What happened with that whole thing, right? You learn about that story. You learn about my mom's history. You know, my mom was a prolific choreographer, one of the greatest choreographers in the world. She created a dance technique called Mfundala dance technique, which is practiced all over the world right now. And you know, she was rooted in polyrhythms and African polyrhythm. And so she talks about her story. She grew up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And she was, you know, a little black girl from the projects, and they told her, you know, they didn't put her in any dances. You know, he was in a all-white dance thing, and they didn't select her for anything. And she said, well, how am I going to be a dancer? And the person said, well, you could make up your own dance and put yourself in it. and, you know, a star was born.
That's right.
Say less, you know,
right.
because
That's right.
as soon as she realized that, it's like, okay, yeah, and that's what she did. And so, but her story is in here, her journey, and also her struggles, you know, her struggles with depression, her struggles with prescription drugs. Those part of the story, the humanity is in there. And then Bob, who is my brother's dad and Nasir's grandfather, and my mom's, a man who my mom loved very deeply, but who was very horrible to her. In fact, when I was growing up, I saw red. I had so much anger toward Bob because only thing I knew is that he hit my mom. Anybody that hits my mom, it's on sight. You touch my mom, it's on sight. So isn't that right, Nasir? Somebody touch your mom, it's on sight, right? There's no doubt about it. You don't touch my mom. You don't hit my mom. You don't even think about hitting my mom. If you even think about hitting my mom, it's on. So, rest in peace, Ina. But Bob's story is in here because he was struggling with this dark addiction that was so dark. It was so dark that when you learned about it and read his letters, you actually said, man, I should have helped the guy. You know, you felt sorry for him, right? Because it really gave a different perspective. And so you learn about, part of it is, you know, when families keep secrets, it's very, it hurts you. Let me. I have a thing in here where I say a specific line about these secrets that the family is keeping and how they do damage to us. I say, and letters are a big part of our family. Everybody wrote letters. My brother wrote me letters from prison. Grandma Beverly, can we also give a round of applause for Grandma Beverly, who's right here in the audience?
Oh, Grandma Beverly.
Grandma Beverly, and I say this in the book, she actually started this whole letter. Her and Nasir, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, but letters are a part of our family DNA, braided into our chromosomes like Senegalese two-strand twist. There are 2 letters I've received in my life that I will cherish forever. I talk about my brother Uzi's letter from jail, and I talk about a letter that Dr. Maya Angelou gave me. But then I want to go to this thing about the secrets, and it's actually not your grandfather Uzi or Ina's letters that sparked this letter. It's actually yours. You may not remember this, but at just 5 years old, you wrote a letter to your dad. You wrote the letter in 2005, a week before Hurricane Katrina battered the Gulf Coast. The levees broke and New Orleans sank. Your mom didn't even know about the letter. Your grandma Beverly, who is now leading a prayer circle in the middle of the ER lobby, enclosed your letter within her own letter to my brother. Grandma Beverly's prayers drown out the incessant hum of despair in the ER. Will he do it, she asked. Of course, mm-hms and uh-huhs come back. You wrote your letter on the same day that Kanye West, during a live NBC telethon for the victims of Katrina, went off script and said, I hate the way they portray us in the media. If you see a black family, it's looting. If you see a white family, they're searching for food. He ends by calling out FEMA and President Bush for their lack of response to the tragedy, looking straight into the camera and declaring, George Bush doesn't care about black people. Go and tell Hezekiah, Grandma Beverly shouts. This is what the Lord God, your ancestor David said. I've heard your prayer. I've seen your tears. The Katrina tragedy, specifically all the people who couldn't afford the luxury of evacuation, reminds me of the devastating hurricane in Zora Neale Hurston's 1937 novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Grandma Beverly sends your letter along with hers to Ina's house since she didn't have Uzi's address. And so then I enclosed the letter that Grandma Beverly sent to Uzi with Nasir's letter in there. And so this is the story of everything he didn't know, right? All these things were kept from him. But one of the things that I started to realize is that when you keep these things, you're also at danger of repeating these things. You know, if you don't know about your pop, then you might go be walking the same path and not even know it. So you have to know. It's important, you know, and secrets, when you keep secrets, because I talk about secrets, I think, is kind of a theme. It must be this next chapter here. I wish I had a little bit better handle on where everything was, but I basically talk about how secret, when you keep secrets, it doesn't allow you to tap into the power of your greatness. You don't even know how great you are, you know, because of these secrets, you know what I mean? And so they're very destructive. You know, he survived, and by the end of it, you've learned about several generations of a family and what happened, you know, because something happened. There were several things that happened that made things go a little left. And so, but it's not just that history. It's the history of our people, you know, in this country. It's people like George Moses Horton. I talk about people like him, you know, the poet who bought his own freedom from slavery, right? And then moved to Philadelphia, and then moved to Liberia, right? It's like stories like that, you know?
Beautiful. What about Uzi? How did in terms of the relationship with Nasir, how did that end? How did that come?
Well,
did they meet?
Yeah, so my mom, one of the things that's really deep about this book is my mom, Ina, we call her Ina in the book. Ina said, you know, she told Nasir, she pulled him aside and she said, I can't, and she had told me something like this too, but she said to Nasir, I can't die in peace until you and your father connect. Like, it's just, I can't go like this, right? And she was suffering. And Nasir mentioned that to me. And I gave my brother, because, you know, every now and then we see him and talk to him, I gave him, and I would always, I always tell him it's never too late, you know? But I gave him a thumb drive of Nasir's music. Nasir is a prolific artist. You mean he's recorded hundreds and hundreds of songs. So I gave him a thumb drive, and Nasir's entire life, you know, he never reached out to him. But after he heard his music, my brother reached out to his son for the first time ever. And to me, that was a testament to the power of the word, the music, right? What music can do, you know, it really, truly, that's why I talk about the healing temples and all of that, because Grandma Beverly's letters couldn't compel him, Ina's letters couldn't compel him, everything I was saying couldn't compel him, you know, it's like, but he heard his son's music, and he was like, and so he reached out with his own kind of letter, and that's also in the book. And it's very interesting, you know, and it's honest, and you know, it is vulnerable, and he knows he's wrong. Yes. Right? He's like understands that he's wrong, and he's not coming in trying to. He really is coming in to say, kid, you're awesome. Yeah. Like, you're really dope. And I know it has not that much to do with me, other than maybe DNA, but I know I wasn't, you know, but you are really dope, you know, and you are the truth. You are actually the one, right? You are the one. And so that's what the message was, essentially. And so in the book, Ina passes away. You know, my mom in 2021, and that's when you have the first real meeting of everybody's there. And it's so interesting, right? Because Ina said, you know, she can't die in peace until this happens, and then her death literally brought everybody together. That's literally when that connection, you know, and so, yeah, but another thing I wanted to do is I thought it was very important to end the book with Nasir's voice. So the book, you know, all throughout the book, he's basically in the hospital, and you know, there's different, you know, there's times when the prognosis looks pretty bleak, you know, and so it's definitely a journey, you know, in terms of the medical aspect of it. But I thought it was really important that he end the story, you know, because you hear so many other voices throughout the book, whether it's Bob or me or Ina or Grandma Beverly or his mom or some, you know, some hip hop, you know, whatever it is. But I thought his, you know, like I said, he's basically, even though it's nephew, he's in the hospital, you know, he's the one, we don't know, he's fighting for his life. And so when he's recovers, we hear his voice for the first time. And
is that when he says, I'm not mad at you, I'm glad for you? Is that
yeah, and that's a Tupac reference. Tupac had Tupac, you know, had a, you know, I ain't mad at you.
Right.
I ain't mad at you.
Right. Exactly.
But Nasir's is I ain't mad at you, I'm glad at you. Everything that you didn't do actually made me a more remarkable man. And it's given me a different kind of, it's given me strength, and I've been able to draw from my village and my community. He says something in the song, Nasir does, in his poem and his verse, that I think is like really mature and profound. Because I want to add a little nuance to it. You know, Ina always used to say things aren't black and white, right?
Yes.
And so it's like, it's easy to make things black and white sometimes, but there's like sometimes there's this nuance that makes it difficult to, and that's what you were talking about. So because remember, we started this conversation, I said we had to go back, because you asked me about the fire.
Yes.
And I said, no, we can't just go into the fire. I have to take you back, and I've taken you back, and now we're at the fire again. My brother Uzi saves an old man from a burning house on Pearl Street in Norristown. It makes the news.
Yes.
The old man's name is Pops. And it's one of those moments that's, you know, shocking for, you know, I mean, he's on the news, he saved this dude's life, the dude was gonna die. And this guy is like his dad's age, basically. And you start to think about, like, you know, in so many ways, I think he wished he could have saved his dad, you know? And it never happened. You know, his dad succumbed to the streets and to drugs, but I think he wanted, but I think something about Pops, saving Pops was redemptive for him, because he saved Pops, and then you also see him after that, he has another child, and he has another child that Nasir in his lyrics talks about, but he has another child that he is actually there for. That's the nuance I'm talking about. It's easy to paint people in just one way, and in this particular case, it is one way in terms of in terms of Nasir's, this particular book and this story. It is one way. It wasn't there. But when you're talking about a person and people and redemption and and how that works, you know, the story is not over.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I talk about one of my friends in this book, John, who, you know, it took many years for him and his father to have this really amazing relationship that they really started when they were adults. And I was even talking earlier this week when we were talking, I was saying how much richer our relationship is as men, you know what I mean, than when I'm like a little kid, you know what I mean? Right. And so I think, you know, that's an important refrain, but that redemption is connected to that, saving that man from the fire, being in his other son's life. And what Nasir says that is so profound and mature, in my opinion, is he says in the song, he says, and I heard you got another child that you take care of. I don't hold that against him. If I see him, I'm going to give him bear hugs.
All right, beautiful.
How mature, and I talk about that throughout the book, about, you know, this kid who's like a teenager who's asking about everybody else, who's saving other people, who's so concerned about his mom, his little sister, and all these other people. And it's like, he's even asking about even he used to ask about his dad. How's my dad? You're asking about him? You know, that's profound, you know, to me, and it's mature. And again, the same thing. I don't hold that against him. I see him, I give him bear hugs.
Wow.
I embrace my brother that I don't even know.
Yeah. We have.
I have not read Nephew, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, cool.
You have a way of like weaving our history, our ancestral culture into like our modern day reality. Was it difficult writing that way, and how important is it for you to make that connection between the ancestral nuances and then making it relatable to people of all ages?
Thank you for that question. And something just occurred to me. It's very funny. So I'm sitting here with my dad, and you know, it's actually really easy for me to do that. And the reason why is because of this guy. The reason why, let me tell you, if you've ever driven anywhere with my dad, it's always a history lesson, right? You could be going to McDonald's, and he's like, you see this McDonald's right here? Before it was a McDonald's, our ancestors built the first, and he'll give you all this history. Anything you do is gonna be, you know, it's nothing ever just, it's nothing just as it is. It's always that next level. And so everything, he made it a point to take like our whole experience, right? Like we'd be walking downtown, for example, and he'd see the columns, the beautiful columns. Oh, look at these beautiful columns. Well, you know these came from Karnak and Abu Simbel in ancient Egypt. We were the first to actually build the columns. The Romans and the Greeks, they took this from us, but this was so everything is history, right? Oh, you know, you're in the sporting goods store. Oh, look, lacrosse. You know the Native Americans were the first to play lacrosse. You know, no, seriously. Hey, right. Dad, can we get some fireworks for July 4th? Whose independence are you celebrating? You know, I mean, he was someone who always, you couldn't, it's like, and so you start to think very critically all the time about, well, where does that come from? And why do we call it French toast and not Nigerian toast? You know what I mean? Like, actually, I want some Nigerian toast, actually. But the thing is, it's that kind of, you know, and that's, you know, Afrocentricity is about seeing the world through your own eyes. That's so right. Once you're seeing the world through your own eyes, everything that you see is a reflection of that, right? And it's going to have that in it. So I think growing up with him and my dad made it, like I said, it was like constant. Like he was always making these connections, like just always. So, and this is how he is, you know.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Are they running us out of here?
But thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Right. This was really, really wonderful, and I truly, truly enjoyed it. And I want to thank the Free Library for bringing us together. No, you are amazing.
Thank you.